Have you ever bent down to pick up a grandchild or reached for something on a high shelf and felt a sudden twinge in your back? Or maybe you've noticed you're not quite as steady on your feet as you used to be, even though you're doing all the same things you've always done. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Today, we're going to talk about something that affects millions of people as they age: osteoporosis. Now, I know that word might sound a little intimidating, but stick with me. By the end of our time together, you'll understand exactly what it is, why it happens, and, most importantly, how you can take charge of your bone health to stay strong, active, and independent for years to come. Let's start by demystifying osteoporosis. Think of your bones like a honeycomb, strong but full of tiny spaces. Over time, if those spaces grow larger, your bones become more fragile. That's osteoporosis. It's often called the silent disease because it sneaks up without obvious symptoms until suddenly a minor stumble leads to a broken wrist or hip. Scary, right? But here's the thing: knowledge is power. Once you understand why it happens and what to watch for, you can take steps to protect yourself. So, let's break it down together. First, let's talk about why our bones change as we age. You see, our bodies are constantly rebuilding bone, breaking down old tissue and replacing it with new. But after 50, that process starts to slow. For women, menopause speeds things up because estrogen, which protects bones, drops sharply. Men aren't off the hook either. Low testosterone can play a role. And for all of us, factors like not getting enough calcium or vitamin D, living a sedentary lifestyle, or even certain medications can tip the scales. But here's what's fascinating: osteoporosis isn't just about aging. It's about how we've treated our bones throughout our lives. Ever skipped milk as a kid or traded walks for TV time in your 40s? Those choices add up. But don't worry, it's never too late to start making a difference. Now, how do you know if osteoporosis is affecting you? Early on, there might be no signs at all. That's why it's so sneaky. But as it progresses, you might notice little things, like losing a bit of height over the years. Yes, that's not just your imagination or a stooped posture. Some folks feel a deep ache in their bones, especially in the lower back. Others realize something's wrong only after a fracture from a simple slip. My friend Linda, for example, broke her wrist last year while gardening, something she'd done 1,000 times before. Turns out, her bones had been weakening for years without her knowing. That's why paying attention to your body and getting checked is so important. Let me pause here and ask you, does any of this resonate? Maybe you've brushed off back pain as just getting older or blamed your balance on tiredness. But here's the truth: your bones are the foundation of everything you do. Whether it's dancing at a family wedding, lifting groceries, or playing with your grandkids, strong bones keep you in the game. And while we can't turn back the clock, we can make choices today that help your body rebuild and protect what you've got. Now, I know this might feel overwhelming. But remember, we're in this together. In our next conversation, we'll dive into the practical, everyday steps you can take to nourish your bones, stay active safely, and work with your doctor to catch any issues early. Think of it like tending a garden. With the right care, you can grow resilience. So, pour yourself a cup of tea, grab a notebook if you'd like, and meet me back here for part 2. Together, we'll build a plan to keep you standing tall, literally and figuratively, for all the moments that matter most. Welcome back. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and talk about how we can actively protect our bones. Remember that garden metaphor I mentioned earlier? Well, just like plants need sunlight, water, and good soil, your bones need specific nutrients and care to thrive. And the best part? You don't need a green thumb to make this work, just a little know-how and some simple habits. Let's start with food, because who doesn't love a good meal? Calcium is the superstar here. It's the building block of bone, and our bodies can't produce it on their own. So, where do we get it? Dairy, yes, milk, yogurt, cheese. But if you're lactose intolerant or just not a fan, there are plenty of other options. Leafy greens like kale and collards, almonds, fortified plant-based milks, even canned sardines with those soft, edible bones. And here's a pro tip: pair these with vitamin D-rich foods like eggs or fatty fish. Vitamin D is like the key that unlocks calcium's potential. It helps your body absorb it. Think of them as a dynamic duo, like peanut butter and jelly. Now, I'll let you in on a secret: timing matters. Spread your calcium intake throughout the day instead of loading up all at once. Your body can only absorb about 500 milligrams in one sitting. So, maybe a yogurt parfait at breakfast, a handful of almonds at lunch, and a stir-fryer with bok choy for dinner. Small tweaks, big impact. Next up, movement. I know, exercise can feel like a chore, especially if joints ache or energy lags. But here's the good news: you don't need to run marathons or lift heavy weights. In fact, the best exercises for bone health are gentle, deliberate, and weight-bearing. What does that mean? Anything where you're on your feet, working against gravity. Walking, dancing, gardening, even climbing stairs. My neighbor, Ray, swears by his daily grocery store laps. He parks at the far end of the lot and takes an extra loop around the produce section. 2 birds, 1 stone, he says, gets his steps in and remembers to buy veggies. Strength training is also key. No, you don't need a gym membership. Soup cans, resistance bands, or even your own body weight can work wonders. Focus on moves that target your hips, spine, and wrists, the areas most vulnerable to fractures. Think leg lifts, wall push-ups, or seated rows with a resistance band. Start small, 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week. Consistency trumps intensity every time. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: fear of falling. It's natural to feel cautious, but avoiding movement altogether can actually increase your risk. Balance exercises are your best defense. Try standing on one foot while brushing your teeth, or practice heel-to-toe walking along a hallway. Tai Chi is another fantastic option. It's like slow-motion karate that boosts balance and calm. My friend Joanne joined a Tai Chi class at her community center and jokes that she's now graceful enough to embarrass her grandkids. Finally, let's talk about teamwork, because you don't have to navigate this alone. Your doctor is your partner in bone health. Ask about a bone density scan, especially if you've had a fracture or noticed changes in your posture. It's a quick, painless test that gives you a snapshot of your bone strength. If you're on medications like steroids or certain thyroid treatments, have a chat about their long-term effects. And don't shy away from supplements if your doctor recommends them. Sometimes life gets busy, and a calcium or vitamin D pill can fill the gaps. Here's what I want you to remember: every meal, every step, every conversation with your doctor is a brick in the fortress you're building around your bones. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Missed your walk today? Try a 5-minute stretch before bed. Ate toast for dinner? Toss some spinach into tomorrow's omelet. This isn't a race, it's a lifelong conversation with your body. In our final chat, we'll tackle some surprising lifestyle factors that affect bone health, things you might not expect, from sleep habits to that nightly glass of wine. Plus, we'll talk about how to stay motivated even when life throws curveballs. So, grab your walking shoes or your comfiest chair. Wherever you are, I'll meet you here for next part. Together, we'll make sure your golden years are filled with strength, joy, and lots of good stories. There's something magical about tending a garden, isn't there? You nurture the soil, protect the plants from pests, and give them just the right amount of sun and water. And over time, they bloom. Well, think of your bones the same way. We've talked about nourishment and movement, essential tools in your toolkit. But today, let's dig into the hidden factors that can quietly shape your bone health. Some might surprise you, and others might just inspire you to rethink a habit or two. Let's start with sleep. Now, I know tossing and turning can feel like a normal part of aging, but here's the thing: deep sleep is when your body does its best repair work, including rebuilding bone. If you're chronically sleep deprived, it's like trying to fix a leaky roof during a rainstorm. You're never quite catching up. So, what can you do? Aim for that golden 7 to 8 hours. Create a wind-down routine, maybe a warm bath, a good book, or gentle stretches. And if pain keeps you up, don't suffer in silence, talk to your doctor. My cousin Marty swapped his lumpy old mattress for a supportive one and says it's like sleeping on a cloud made of resolve. Now, let's talk about something many of us enjoy but don't always connect to bone health, that evening glass of wine or beer. In moderation? Fine. But overdo it, and alcohol can interfere with calcium absorption and even throw off your balance, upping the risk of falls. Moderation's the key. Think 1 drink a day for women, 2 for men. And here's a fun swap. Try sparkling water with a splash of tart cherry juice. It's festive, refreshing, and your bones will thank you. Here's another factor you might not expect: smoking. I know, most of us ditched that habit decades ago, but if you're still occasionally lighting up, hear me out. Smoking slows down the cells that build bone and speeds up the ones that break it down. It's a double whammy. Now, quitting isn't easy, but it's never too late. My buddy Carl smoked for 40 years, then swapped cigarettes for sugar-free gum and long walks. Traded one oral fixation for another, he laughs. And his last bone scan? Big improvement. Stress. Oh, stress. It creeps into our lives in 1,000 ways: worries about family, health, finances. But chronic stress pumps out cortisol, a hormone that can weaken bones over time. So, what's the antidote? Find your calm. Maybe it's meditation, prayer, or losing yourself in a hobby like painting or birdwatching. My Aunt Betty took up knitting at 75 and says it's better than Xanax. And if you're social? Even better. Laughter with friends doesn't just lift your mood, it lightens the load on your bones, too. Let's tie this all together. Strong bones aren't just about calcium pills or doctor's visits, they're about how you live. Every choice, from the food on your plate to the thoughts in your mind, shapes your foundation. And here's the beautiful part: you don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Start small. Swap soda for mineral water. Take a balance break during TV commercials. Call a friend instead of ruminating on worries. These tiny shifts? They add up to something mighty. Now, I want you to picture something. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. You're strong. You're steady. You're bending down to plant tulip bulbs, lifting your grandbaby without a second thought, or exploring a new city on vacation. That's the future we're building toward. And it's absolutely within your reach. So, be kind to yourself. Celebrate every step forward, even the stumbles. Remember, you're not just preventing fractures, you're preserving your freedom. Before we say goodbye, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, tell me one small change you'll try this week, or share a story about how you've stayed strong. Let's create a community of wisdom and support here. And if this series resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more folks find this channel, and honestly, it makes my day to know we're in this together. Life after 50 isn't about slowing down, it's about savoring every moment, with strength and joy. So here's to you, to your resilience, your wisdom, and the incredible journey ahead. Keep blooming, my friend. And remember, no matter your age, the best chapters are still being written.